Hey everyone, here is an advanced video, so if you are not an advanced Bitcoin user, you can just skip this one. But I heard an analogy recently that I thought was appropriate, and I wanted to walk through it for how the blocks in the Bitcoin blockchain are linked together, and how the difficulty adjustment, which adjusts about every 2 weeks, which is actually about every 2000, well, it's exactly 2016 blocks, but that happens on average exactly 2 weeks apart. Unless the Bitcoin miners are finding blocks a little bit too fast or a little bit too slow, then it is slightly more than 2 weeks or slightly less than 2 weeks, but that's part of what I want to talk about. Okay, so what is the Bitcoin blockchain? Well, the Bitcoin blockchain are blocks of transactions that are chained together, going back to the very first block, which is the Genesis block, which was launched on January 3rd of 2009. That is the genesis of the Bitcoin blockchain, was on January 3 of 2009. Okay, so the very first block was block 1. Right now we are more than 884,000 blocks in the blockchain, which means about every 10 minutes for the last more than 16 years, the Bitcoin blockchain has been adding a new block to the chain. So the way the Bitcoin blockchain is set up, effectively it's like a puzzle piece. It's like Satoshi Nakamoto put the very first corner puzzle piece on the board, and we got to build a puzzle in one long straight line where every puzzle piece is connected to only one more puzzle piece, and then on the front of it, and then on the back of it, another puzzle piece connects, and then that's how the chain is chained together. So nothing ever connects to the sides of the puzzle pieces. It's just a very long chain of a single row of. Okay, so imagine that Satoshi Nakamoto put down the very first puzzle piece, and it has only one end that you can connect anything to. So it's basically the anchor puzzle piece of the Bitcoin blockchain, and you got to figure out what the second puzzle piece is, and all the chains are going to connect together. So it needed to be, for a bunch of reasons I've explained on other videos, that Satoshi Nakamoto, the inventor of Bitcoin, wanted one new puzzle piece to be discovered about every 10 minutes, because he wanted to make sure. Okay, sorry, my signal is having issues here. So anyway, so it's like Satoshi invented the blockchain and put down the very first puzzle piece, which is just a flat end on three sides, meaning you can't connect anything on three sides. And he put down the very first puzzle piece, and then he had to figure out, how do I make it where everybody only finds a new puzzle piece every 10 minutes? Because he wanted there to be long enough for all of the computers anywhere in the world, including on satellites, including on the moon, including on everything, to synchronize and agree on the absolute definition of truth. And so he set the difficulty adjustment at 1, and 1 meant you had to try on the table. So it dumps a bunch more puzzle pieces on the table, so that instead of trying 4.3 billion, you've got to try maybe 5 billion pieces in order to find the next block. And then you got to try, as more computers join the network, you got to try 10 billion pieces. And it's not that more than one person can't find a fitting piece. It's just that on average, one piece will fit out of every 4.3 billion pieces. So that's the way the Bitcoin blockchain worked right out of the gate. And then every 2 weeks, which was every 2016 blocks, actually, every 2016 blocks, it would detect how long it took to mine, meaning to add, to find those 2016 puzzle pieces to string in a row, and then it would adjust the difficulty. So what started as you find a puzzle piece every 4.3 billion tries, you have to try 4.3 billion puzzle pieces to add a new piece to the chain, became an astronomically larger number, because computers are good at trying puzzle pieces. And so as you keep trying and trying and trying more pieces, more and more people join the Bitcoin network trying puzzle pieces, and it kept adjusting, making it harder and harder and harder and harder to find a piece. So in a second here, I'll talk about how hard it is to find a piece, but what is in a puzzle piece? So a puzzle piece, which is called a block, first of all, it has the shape, which is the cryptographic hash of the previous block. That's how you prove that your puzzle piece fits with the previous puzzle piece. So that's why it's called a block chain, because all of the pieces are chained together, and every piece it has a cryptographic hash, which is sort of the shape of the previous puzzle piece embedded in it. If that was not the case, you would not have a way of proving that you had found a piece that fit, or that somebody had not manipulated the puzzle by trying to replace earlier pieces. So every puzzle piece, which is every Bitcoin block, has the shape of the previous piece embedded in it. It also has all of the transactions from the last 10 minutes embedded in it. And it also has a special transaction which gives whoever finds the puzzle piece extra Bitcoin. And it started at 50 Bitcoin for the first 4 years, then it was 25 for the next 4 years, then it was 12.5 for the next 4 years, then it was 6.25 for the next 4 years, and now it is 3.125 Bitcoin. So whoever finds that puzzle piece about every 10 minutes, they get 3.125 Bitcoin. Now, the last piece in the puzzle is a random number. And the reason it has to be a random number is because otherwise every puzzle piece would be the same. So once you tried one piece and it didn't fit, there'd be nowhere to go, because you have to modify your puzzle pieces. You know, every puzzle piece has to be different. And so everybody's trying all these puzzle pieces, each of which has the transactions from the previous 10 minutes. It has the shape of the previous puzzle piece. It has the special Coinbase transaction, which is what the company Coinbase is named after. It has the Coinbase transaction, and it has a random number, so that all the puzzle pieces that are being tried are a little bit different from each other. Again, if you didn't use a random number and you just use the same number over and over, then it'd be like trying a puzzle piece that didn't work and then trying it again. Well, no matter how many times you try the same not fitting puzzle piece, it's not going to suddenly start working. So you have to put a random number in every puzzle piece to make them all different from each other. Okay, so that is what's in it. It's the hash of the previous block, which is sort of the shape of the previous puzzle piece. It's got the transactions from the last 10 minutes. It's got your special Coinbase transaction that gives Bitcoin to you. And if you try to give yourself more than the protocol allows, like more than 3.125, everyone will reject it. So there's no point in mining a Bitcoin block that has more than the allowable amount of Bitcoin in it for you, because the rest of the network is set to reject anybody that tries to cheat that way. And then it has a random number in it. And the random numbers can be basically infinite. Okay, so let's talk about difficulty again. This is where it gets pretty cool. Okay, so the difficulty was set to 1, which is 1 out of every 4.3 billion pieces fits. And that went on for the first 2016 blocks, which was about the first 2 weeks. And then it kept getting, as more people were mining Bitcoin, more computers were guessing puzzle pieces. It got harder and harder and harder and harder and harder. Okay, so the current network difficulty is 114 trillion. What that means, it is 114 trillion times harder to find a Bitcoin puzzle piece today than it was at the beginning. 114 trillion times harder. So how many puzzle pieces do you have to try on average, or does all the world's computers that are trying to mine Bitcoin, how many do they have to try in order before somebody gets a Bitcoin block? And the answer is about 600 billion trillion. Now, that means every second, so 10 minutes has 600 seconds in it. It's 60 seconds in a minute times 10 minutes. So that means there's about, out of 600 billion trillion puzzle pieces that have to be tried before somebody finds the next Bitcoin block. It's called mining a block. Mining because it was named after gold mining. You know, you have to chip away until you find the block. And it takes on average right now about 600 billion trillion tries. So if you break that down, divide it by 600 seconds in a minute, it means every second there is about 1 billion trillion puzzle pieces tried. So my Bitcoin miners at home, I have 2 of them, and each of them do about 1 terahash. 1 terahash means they are trying about 1 trillion puzzle pieces per second. So even my Bitcoin miners at home can try 1 trillion puzzle pieces per second, trying to find the right puzzle piece. Now, the problem is there are 100 billion trillion puzzle pieces that have to be tried before, or there's 600 billion trillion puzzle pieces that have to be tried every 10 minutes before somebody mines a block, which means the probability that I will find one of those is less than 1 in a billion, meaning I will mine a Bitcoin block with my Bitcoin miners at home. Each of them has a chance of mining a block about once every 15,000 years. And the reason it's 15,000 years is because that is about how long it takes to go through with me doing 1 trillion tries a second, and with the Bitcoin network requiring 1 billion trillion, then my chances of finding it are based on the fact that it takes me about 1 billion tries to get a Bitcoin block, and it takes about 115,000 years, sorry, 15,000 years to try a billion tries. But that assumes that the difficulty adjustment doesn't go up, and the difficulty adjustment is going up constantly every 2 weeks. So it means my Bitcoin miners at home are purely doing it for fun, because they will never mine a Bitcoin block. It is basically statistically impossible that they will mine a Bitcoin block. Okay, so why is all of this necessary? Why are we using 1/10 of 1% of the world's electricity to do it this way? And the answer is because the most important thing in Bitcoin is that there's only 21 million Bitcoin, and that there is only one version of the truth. And if you do it any other way, you cannot guarantee that there's only one version of the truth. So for example, if you said, well, why don't everybody with a computer vote on what the truth is? The problem is someone would spin up a bot farm on AWS or, Google Cloud or something like that, and they would make a gazillion computers each having a vote, and they would flood the network with votes saying that the version of truth involved them having more Bitcoin. Or something like that. Now, cryptographically, you can't do that because you can't claim you have Bitcoin that you don't have, but they could try to do a transaction and then spread the word that they had not actually done the transaction. So they buy something, and then they try to reverse it by spreading misinformation about the nature of the transactions on the Bitcoin blockchain ledger. So the only way you can get around that, or the only way you can solve for that, is to solve what's called the Byzantine generals problem, which is what Satoshi Nakamoto solved with the Bitcoin blockchain. And the way the Byzantine generals problem, if you want to Google it to find out what it is, it's closely linked with the genesis, the creation of Bitcoin, and the difficulty adjustment, which I've described to some degree in this video. But the Byzantine generals problem is a problem where you try to figure out where there's only one version of truth without requiring anyone to trust anyone else. So that is the big unlock of Bitcoin, is there's only one version of the truth. There's only one version of who owns what Bitcoin. And there's only one version of the fact that there's, that an infinite number of people can check to make sure there's only 21 million total Bitcoin, and that nobody has, cheated the system somehow. So in order to have only one version of the truth, you have to have a huge amount of computing power deciding what that one version of the truth is. And here's the thing. Every time you add one of those puzzle pieces to the Bitcoin blockchain, on average, that somebody did enough work that they would only find a puzzle piece once every 600 billion trillion tries. So right now, when a block gets added to the Bitcoin blockchain, you know that the total amount of work that went into finding that version of truth was on average 600 billion trillion tries of that. So if you show up and somebody says, my version of the truth is better than your version of the truth, it's a very simple question, which is, who's got the longer blockchain? Because whoever has the longer blockchain did more work to create it. And the way Bitcoin is set up, the absolute version of the truth is whatever is the longer chain. And because you can't fake the longest chain, because it has the most proof of work embedded in it, it guarantees that the Bitcoin blockchain will only ever have one version of the truth. So again, you can't fake it because there's no way to fake I tried a gazillion, 600 billion trillion puzzle pieces. I can't say, well, hey, my puzzle's longer, because people are going to say, yeah, but look, you said it where the difficulty adjustment was easy, and then you added puzzle pieces. And the way the Bitcoin blockchain works is the longest chain, which is defined as the chain with the most proof of work in it, is always the absolute and only version of truth that exists in the world. And that is replicated across more than 100,000 computers around the world that keep a full and complete version of the entire Bitcoin blockchain, including me. I run 2 Bitcoin nodes at home, in addition to 2 Bitcoin miners, even though there's no reason each one needs to have one. You could mine an unlimited amount of Bitcoin with just one node, but I just happen to run 2 nodes. But anyway, so I have 2 nodes, both of which have the entire complete Bitcoin blockchain from the Genesis block to the present. And the device that runs those, which is Umbrel, U-M-B-R-E-L, it's the first 5 or 6 letters, I guess the first U-M-B-R-E-L, it's the first 6 letters of the word umbrella, Umbrel.com, like umbrella, except it's missing letters, so it's only the first 6, Umbrel.com, is a Bitcoin node implementation that costs less than $500. So if you want to run your entire own Bitcoin node with an entire copy of the Bitcoin ledger from the very first transaction in the past to the current, so that you are a participant in guaranteeing that there is only one version of truth, you can do that, and it costs $450, $450. So for less than $450, you can have an entire copy of the entire Bitcoin blockchain on your own computer, sitting at home, and it's pretty awesome. So anyway, that is how that works. It started as you got to try 4.3 billion puzzle pieces to mine, to find a puzzle piece that fits. Now you have to try 600 billion trillion puzzle pieces in order for it to fit. And you can trust the Bitcoin blockchain because there's only ever one version of truth, because whichever chain has the most proof of work in it, meaning you can prove that they had to try the most number of puzzle pieces to get it, is the absolute record of truth on the Bitcoin blockchain. And nobody before or after Satoshi Nakamoto figured out how to create an absolute single unalterable record of proof without having to rely on a central party to just tell you what the truth is. So you can go to your bank and ask the bank how much money you have, but they can change the numbers. You can go to the Federal Reserve and ask them how much money you have, and they'll tell you, but they can change the numbers. They can also change how much money there is, which makes your money less valuable. So nobody other than Satoshi Nakamoto has ever come up with a mechanism by which you can absolutely guarantee there is only one record of truth anywhere in the world, and that everyone agrees on that record of truth, and that record of truth is absolutely, completely unalterable. And that was done through the blockchain, which is effectively now 884,000 puzzle pieces all chained in a row, every one of them perfectly linked to the puzzle piece before. The chain is unalterable because if you broke the chain anywhere, you would have to redo that proof of work, meaning you'd have to re-find all of the puzzle pieces past the point that you broke it. And it has created one absolute irrefutable oracle of truth for the world, which is how Bitcoin works. But probably the most shocking thing is that we went from, you used to be able to find a Bitcoin block one every 4.3 billion tries, to now you find a Bitcoin block every 600 billion trillion tries. That's how hard it is to mine a block on the Bitcoin blockchain, which is how important it is to know that there's absolutely positively only one record of truth. Because anybody that tries to generate any other record of truth would have to compete with 600 billion trillion tries every 10 minutes, which is what the Bitcoin network is currently creating. So hopefully that trivia is fun, even though it's pretty advanced. And if I can help anyone on their Bitcoin journey, let me know. Thanks.